Hello everyone, my name is Simeon and I was born in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. And I would like to share with you one story which is a fairy tale from the time when I was a child, and I know it from my grandfather. The story is a recording of a Balkan fairy tale. As I told you, I'm from Bulgaria, and it is translated in English without editing it, as it was told more than 1 century ago at the village of my grandfather when he was a child. He knows this fairy tale from his grandmother, and she used to tell this story to the children during the winter holidays, usually before going to sleep, to make them go to sleep quickly, and it was told as a bedtime story, usually next to the fireplace where all the stories were told years ago. And what is very impressive about this story is that it was told me in a way in which I stayed with the impression, I believed that it is a real story that once had happened in the past in my grandfather's village. To be honest, I'm not sure if this story could make the children want to go to sleep earlier, but for sure it can make them want to hide under the blanket and not to run around and make noise. I decided to translate the story that I'm sharing now with you in English because it is my favorite fairy tale from the time that I was a child, and because I would like not to let this story disappear with time and to remember it. After all, it impressed me so much when I was a child. I liked it so much, and I still enjoy it after more than 20 years since that moment. I would like also to share this fairy tale with my international friends in English as an international language. Even if I speak with some strange Balkan accent, I believe that you will understand everything because it is really interesting. And I also found the story interesting for topic for podcast. My first podcast in English, because it is different from the most modern fairy tales. It has no happy end. It is brutal and scary, like sometimes the reality is, and at the same time it is magical and fantastic. Geographically, the story is from the area of the town of Bulgaria called Kyustendil, and more specifically from the village called Drumukhar, the birthplace of my great-grandmother. The name of my great-grandmother's village, Drumukhar, has a Greek origin from the Greek words dromos and charin, as the road passed through there. Dromos in Greek means road. So this road was connecting the surrounding villages with the city of Kyustendil, a place known for its ancient history, thermal springs, and tasty fruits. And of course, after my first podcast, it may also become known for the Balkan horror story that I decided to translate in English and share with you. As a child, I used to ask my grandfather to tell me this story over and over again, many times, one after another, and this is why, and actually how, I still remember it by my heart. I found it so exciting, maybe because it is scary, and we people are attracted in general to horror stories in a strange way, and everything scary, unexplained, or different provokes our mind and fantasy. After you listen to it, I would like to ask you if it reminds you of some different or unusual traditional folklore story, or if it reminds you for any urban legend from your region. So you're welcome to share in the comments your favorite story from your childhood. But first, let me present you my favorite story. Once upon a time, a man's wife died, so he was left alone as a widower with a child on his arms to take care of. In order not to be alone and to be able to support the household, he decided to find a new wife to marry again. He found also a widow who also had a child from her previous marriage. After the new marriage, the new family became bigger. They already had two female children, one found by the new wife in her man's house, and the one that she brings with her to her new husband's house. One of the girls was a biological daughter only to the father, and the other had a blood connection only with the mother, but they were all now one family. The new housewife was the mother of one of the girls and the stepmother of the other girl. Anyway, the mother loved her own biological daughter more than the orphan girl that she found in the house. And as a new housewife, she was taking more care of her own first daughter, neglecting the daughter that she found in the house from the father's previous family. The new housewife did not look after the daughter of her husband properly. She did not dress her in clean clothes. She did not feed her well. The stepmother even started to hate her stepdaughter and did not want her in their new house. The days in the family passed in quarrels and arguments for this reason. The stepmother's hate of her stepdaughter was so strong that one day she managed to convince her husband to take his own daughter by the hand and leave her somewhere so they could get rid of her. The father did not agree at first, but then he agreed just in order to stop the quarrels that they had every day. The parents woke up early in the morning to take their plan into action. The father asked his wife to prepare at least one bread for his daughter so that she would not die of hunger at the place where he was going to leave her. The stepmother prepared one bread for the child that she hated so much, but she made it from ashes, not from white clear flour. The father and his first daughter took the black bread and some water and went on their way. The father took his daughter to a distant place in the forest on a hill from where he threw down the black bread and said to his daughter, "Run, run, quickly, run to catch the bread." The girl ran after the bread, but before she could reach it and catch it, she had already gone down deep into the overgrown valley of the river. The girl managed to catch the bread, and she was already holding it in her hands. She turned her face back, left, right, to see where her father was, but she did not see her father anywhere. She started to scream, but there was no sign of him. Her father had gone away and left her, as his second wife ordered him to do. The girl started to walk in the wild nature, trying to find her daddy or at least her way home. She wandered for a long time through the bushes and through the trees by the riverside. It was getting dark. Fortunately, just a few minutes before the sunset, the girl found herself in front of an old abandoned watermill along the riverside. She had never seen this mill before. At first, She was afraid and timidly opened the creaking wooden door of the old building. Inside, she saw the old watermill wheel and some hay spread around on the floor. It had already gotten dark outside, the night had fallen, and the lost girl had to stay in the old watermill in order to have a place to spend the night. She lay down on the floor and started to have dinner with the black bread mixed with ashes from her stepmother. At that moment, strange noises were heard in the dark corners of the abandoned watermill. Other creatures were also spending the night there. One by one, the other inhabitants of the abandoned watermill came out in front of the girl, a cat, a dog, and a cock. Those animals were also hungry, and they surrounded the girl and were looking at her hands and mouth with their starving eyes, expecting her to share her modest dinner with them. Before she could even think about it, she had already given her first bite to the dog. She took pieces from her own bread and shared them with each one of the three animals, a bite for the dog, a bite for her, a bite for the cat, a bite for her, a bite for the cock, and a bite for her. So the girl and her three new animal friends had dinner together. Before going to bed, they closed the old wooden door of the watermill as best as they could lock it, and they all lay down together on the hay to sleep. But suddenly, at one moment in the night, shortly after the animals and the girl had fallen asleep, shortly after midnight, the devil himself came and knocked on the old wooden door of the watermill and screamed with his thick, heavy, creepy voice. "Knock, knock, girl, you young girl, open the door and let me in." The girl woke up and she was very scared and asked her animals friends to help. "Kitty, dog, cock, what should I reply? Tell me, please." The girl desperately asked her animal friends to help her with what to say to the devil, and the dog came in front of her and told her in a human voice, "Tell him to go to steal the queen's clothes first, and then you will let him enter inside the watermill." The three animals knew the devil's personality, what he would accept and what he would not. Often the new friends of the abandoned girl had seen the devil hiding inside the abandoned old watermill where they themselves lived. But the devil himself had also made the same watermill his hiding place. The animals could see the devil, but he was not able to see them, and thanks to this they knew some of his secrets and weaknesses, where he is usually going and what he is doing. The devil was strong only at the night, and with the sunrise he is always becoming weak, and he is in a hurry to hide, and every morning when the dawn is near, the devil has to be near to the watermill, where he will hide. However, the watermill now had become also a shelter for the abandoned girl as well, and truly angry that another creature had taken his shelter, the devil screamed again with his thick, heavy voice, "Knock, knock, young girl, open the door and let me inside the watermill," breaking the silence of the night. "Go get the queen's clothes and I will let you inside the watermill," the young girl replied. And the devil went quickly as a lightning to the royal palace, leaving the watermill in silence and the girl and her animal friends in suspense. The devil liked this challenge to steal. He quickly ran to the royal palace, silently took the clothes from the queen's wardrobe, and as quickly as a flash of lightning, He returned one more time in front of the wooden door of the old watermill and knocked again. "Knock, knock, younger, open the door and let me inside the watermill." The girl was scared almost as much as the first time that the devil was in front of the door, and again asked her animal friends for help on what to do this time. "Puppy, my dear cock, come kitty, help me please." The cat came in front of her and answered with a human voice. "Ask the devil to bring you the queen's shoes." The devil was even angrier than the first time because he was waiting to enter his own shelter, and he knocked loudly again, shaking the old wooden door from top to bottom. "Knock, knock, young girl, open the door and let me inside the watermill." "Go get me the queen's shoes, and I will let you inside the watermill this time, I promise," the girl asked the devil for a second time, and the devil went as quickly as a lightning to the royal palace, leaving the watermill in silence and the girl and her animal friends in suspense. The devil, with his incredible abilities, traveled quickly again into the king's palace, silently entered the queen's chambers, and more silently stole her shoes, and as quickly as the first time he returned with the queen's shoes in front of the old door of the watermill. He threw the royal shoes in front of the door next to the royal clothes, and knocked again on the old wooden door with even greater force. "Knock, knock, young girl, open the door and let me inside the watermill." The devil was screaming with his thick, heavy voice, and the whole old watermill was shaking, and the girl was shivering from her fear. The girl was scared even more than the two previous times, and again asked her friends for help. "Doggy, kitty, what should I tell him? Would you help me, dear cock, please?" Now was the turn of the cock to take the situation under his control. Confident and proud, he took 3 steps in front of the other animals and advised the frightened, abandoned girl. "Tell him to steal for you the royal jewelry from the king's palace." The devil was already shaking and becoming extremely nervous because more than half of the night had passed and he still couldn't enter inside his shelter. He was ready to break the door of the watermill to hide in his secret shelter before the sunrise. At this moment, the girl asked him for the third time, "Bring the royal jewelry, and this time I will really let you come inside the watermill, I promise." And the devil went as quickly as a lightning to the royal palace, leaving the watermill in silence and the girl and her animal friends in suspense. The devil quickly ran to bring the golden royal jewelry of the queen from the royal palaces, threw it in front of the old door of the abandoned watermill next to the royal shoes and next to the royal clothes, and again the devil was ready to break the door just to enter, to hide from the sunrise that was already close to come. Just at the moment when the devil was ready to break the door, the puppy barked, but the devil didn't stop kicking the door. The kitten hissed, but the devil still continued. Then the cock stood in front of the gate of the watermill, and at the moment when the devil was ready to break it, the cock stood in front of him, flapped with his wings, and crowed. At the same moment the morning came, and the devil was frightened and ran away. The morning had come, and all that remained from the devil were the royal robes, shoes, and jewelry, thrown in front of the door of the old abandoned watermill. The girl went outside, the sun had risen. She adorned herself with the royal belongings, found her way home, and returned alive and well to her birthplace, to her father and stepmother. Seeing her dressed as a queen, they could not recognize her at first. When they found out that she was the child they had abandoned, and the same child had returned home wearing royal shoes, dressed in royal clothes, and adorned with royal jewelry, they could not believe their eyes. The stepmother could not find a place to hide from the envy that she felt seeing the child so beautiful, nice, and rich. Immediately she said that she wanted the father to take also her own daughter to the same place where he took her stepdaughter. The next day, said and done, as the Bulgarian fairy tales say. The mother made bread, but this time from clean white flour. The next day, the father also took his stepdaughter to the forest in the same place and wrote the bread down to the valley of the river, and said to his stepdaughter, "Run, run quickly to catch the bread." The girl ran after the bread, but before she could reach it and catch it, she had already gone down, deep into the overgrown valley of the river. The girl managed to catch the bread and was already holding it in her hands. She turned her face back, left, right, to see where her father was, but she did not see her father anywhere. She started to scream, but there was no sign of him. Her father had gone away and left her, as the mother of the child ordered him to do exactly as he did with her stepsister. The girl started to walk in the wild nature, trying to find her daddy, or at least the way home. She wandered for a long time through the bushes and through the trees in the valley of the river. It was getting darker. Fortunately, just a few minutes before the sunset, she found the same old watermill where her sister went the last night. She knew about this watermill from her stepsister. At first, she was afraid and timidly opened the creaking wooden door of the old building. Inside, she saw the same old watermill wheel and the hay spread around the floor. It had already gotten dark outside, the night had come, and the lost girl had to stay to spend the night in the abandoned watermill. She laid down on the floor and started to have dinner with the white bread prepared by her own mother. At this moment, strange noises were heard in the dark corners of the abandoned watermill. The other creatures who were spending the night in the watermill came out. One by one, the other inhabitants of the abandoned watermill came in front of the girl. The cat, the dog, and the cock. Those animals were also hungry, and they surrounded the abandoned girl and were looking at her hands and mouth with their starving eyes, expecting her to share her modest dinner with them. But she didn't share her food with the starving animals. She ate alone all the pieces of her bread and didn't give even a small piece to the inhabitants of the old watermill. After the girl and the three animals went to sleep, but this time not together, everyone was in a different corner. Before going to bed, the girl closed the old wooden door, as her stepsister advised her to do. As good as she could lock it, and she went to sleep. At one moment in the night, shortly after the animals and the girl had fallen asleep, shortly after midnight, the devil himself came again and knocked on the old wooden door of the watermill and screamed with his thick, heavy, creepy voice, "Knock, knock, young lady, open the door and let me inside the watermill." The girl woke up, and she was very, very scared and asked the animals for help. "Kitty, doggy, cock, what should I reply? Tell me, please." The girl desperately asked the inhabitants of the watermill to help her with what to say to the devil, but they replied to her together from the dark corner with a human voice, "You ate on your own, you will reply now on your own." This time the animals decided to keep the devil's secret and weaknesses that they knew about to themselves, just as the girl kept her food for herself. The devil this time broke the wooden old door and entered inside the watermill. He killed the girl, who was called Mara, by cutting her body piece by piece and ate her piece by piece, winding only her bloody guts into the white stone of the watermill. In the morning, Mara's mother couldn't wait to see her daughter dressed in royal clothes like her stepsister. She went to find Mara at the watermill, but when she saw the broken door, she screamed, "Mare, Mare, where are you, Mare?" Inside, only the devil replied from the dark corners of the abandoned watermill, "You will find only Mara's guts on the watermill's wheel." The mother saw her child's guts on the white watermill's wheel, and the devil climbed up to the roof of the mill, and he was never seen again.